Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Before we get to our great friend, Dr. Lamero, and more great news for America. Dr. Lamero, hang on. We're going to get to you in 2 seconds. We do want to get back to State Representative Mike Kingsley, who we cut off there at the end of last hour. Sir, good morning.
Yeah, thank you. Just the comment that Tommy Alquist said about lowering insurance rates 40 to 60%. And I'm surprised that you didn't say, wait a minute, how are you going to do this? I mean, we're dealing right now in the House with House Bill 464, which is taking 2,000 to 3,000 people off of the sickest people off of private insurance and putting them onto Medicaid. And then supposedly that's going to lower rates to 20%. So if it's some kind of scheme like that, I would be highly doubtful that there's anything even possible of doing that. And I just think as a politician, it's easy to say something, but I would sure like to see facts and figures before making statements like that.
Well, I'll say this: I'm sure he'll provide that for you, and that's the great thing.
It'd be interesting.
Well,
yeah.
that's the great thing about this program. He calls in, you call in, and maybe you both can get together and figure it out, sir.
All right. Thank you for letting me talk.
You're always welcome. Thank you, sir.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Never know what's going to happen here in the morning. We had our great friend Dr. Lamero scheduled. More great news for America, and we've got people talking health care in Idaho. Good morning, sir.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay. That's an example of thanks to the content that you provide and others, this program continues to grow and grow and grow, and people are calling in all the time. How about you?
Well, I'm doing great. More great news for America is selling much faster and more widespread than the previous book, Great News for America, which didn't do so bad and is still selling. And I'm even doing Talk Radio Europe in Spain on Wednesday. First time I've ever done Talk Radio Europe, and it's the only English-speaking talk radio show in Europe. So it's getting around. The message is getting around.
I was wondering, Dr. Lamero, with the overwhelming news so negative, we've kind of discovered this on a local level, and I'm wondering if you found out during your numerous appearances on all these great talk shows across the country that, your book, More Great News for America and Great News for America, people are clamoring for good news.
Yeah, they actually are. And it's amazing, but I get letters from people that say they were depressed. They almost didn't vote in the last presidential election, but my book gave them some hope that things weren't as bad as they seem. And I still believe that today. And my long-term trends, short-term trends, the different models I have, and that indicate that things are still looking up because America basically is positive, forward-looking, and trying to solve problems. And the results appear like we're going to solve the problems. But, boy, there are a lot of people who are negative out there. And I'm not saying this against Americans. I'm saying it against people who I think are being negative and don't need to. And by the way, a lot of them are on the left. I'm not sure I've ever seen a happy leftist.
Now, the libs are not happy people. That's why.
No.
That's why, the lib talk radio didn't work because, who wants to wake up to depression?
Yeah, exactly. But I really think America has got a great future ahead. And really what I do is I just try to study the trends. I'm a computer modeler from way back. I do computer models of things. And I just try to find, what people are thinking and what people are feeling and look really at what all that is. And there are people who do get discouraged, but when they read my books, they usually feel better because they think, well, other people think like I do, and there is hope for America. And despite all the negative that the press feeds us, and I'm not talking about you're part of the good press, the talk radio folks, but the mainstream media, some of those folks are just so negative, and they feed us that constantly, and Americans have to either turn it off or they have to think for themselves or they have to get other people's ideas that are positive, and I'm one of the positive folks, and that's what I'm known for, believe it or not.
Well, that's why we have More Great News for America. But before we delve into your new bestseller, let's take a look at how you think the president's rolling. Another turbulent week. Tillerson out, and that wasn't even the big news over the weekend because McCabe got the boot on Friday, and the liberal press, they don't know how to handle this guy.
Well, gee whiz, who really fired him? Okay, the inspector general that works there at the Department of Justice did an investigation, found that this person apparently has lied and did leaks to the press, and actually even contradicts Comey. So I don't know which one is truly lying, Comey or McCabe, but he was basically shunted aside, not to work anymore until his retirement. And the IG thought he should be fired. And also this other person, Robin Ashton, who is the head of OPR, which is a personal responsibility office. It's basically an internal person that checks on what's going on to see if things are above board. She recommended that he be fired. And by the way, she was appointed and praised very highly by the previous administration, the Obama administration. So she's an Obama appointee getting rid of McCabe, or saying he should be gotten rid of. So I think, the Jeff Sessions did the right thing. I mean, his offices that are there for that purpose recommended this guy get fired. So why not fire him if he did something wrong?
Let's delve into the book. Why do we need to get back to God?
I'll tell you, the answer to that, and I think what I'm finding in the trend, I find a trend that people are returning to God. The reason is the secular world isn't satisfying to them. There's kind of a hole in their soul. There's something missing that only God can give people. And you're hearing my spirituality interpreting the data, but that is the way I would interpret it. That God offers something, love and forgiveness and things that people need, and they need Him when times are tough, when they go through an illness, when they go through marital problems, when they go through a child on drugs and other kinds of terrible things, loss of jobs, you name it. Sometimes people get by, they think, without God when the times are good. When the times get rough, and they don't find an answer anywhere else, they look for spiritual answers, and they look to God. And I think a lot of people are looking to that right now because they don't find it in the secular world.
Indeed, the glorification of, what we have here, the materialism. What do you make of Donald Trump's appeal to the evangelical community, considering that we have this, this is the one that's going to end the presidency with this Stormy Daniels thing? You called Donald Trump before anybody. I can remember you saying, Kevin, you've got to be positive, all during the campaign, and
right.
You turned a lot of non-believers into believers. So what do you make of this latest alleged revelation that's coming this Sunday on 60 Minutes?
It doesn't matter. In terms of electoral impact, for example, in the 2018 election, the left is hoping it'll hurt him, but it's not. People have long ago decided that he's had a little bit of a playboy past and maybe did some things that we don't think are good. I mean, let's face it, people have standards, and not everybody meets those standards. In fact, all of us probably fall sometime in their life. And I think people are willing to forgive him that because they feel like the country's so in need of a tough leader. One of the trends I identified that's mentioned in More Great News for America is the General Patton trend. And the General Patton trend I saw back in 2016, but I only mentioned it because I was writing the book and it just fit into my explanation. And that General Patton trend was America was looking for a president much like a general, somebody as tough as nails, somebody who speaks tough. And if you ever studied General Patton, you know that he was a tough general, and he didn't mince any words, and neither does Donald Trump. In our history, we've elected about 9 presidents that came out of the general ranks. They were generals or military leaders. And that's often the case. We're looking for a strong leader to run the country, and people felt the country needed somebody strong, tough, who'd stand up to other countries like North Korea and Iran, and also would stand up to fight for our border, our sovereignty as a nation, that would shut down the drug cartels and the gangs getting across the border on the south. So what do I think? I think that they're willing to overlook some of his flaws in his past, and they don't care about that. They want somebody who's going to help this country because they know we need it.
Dr. Lamero, if people would like to get your book, what can they do?
Well, they can go to Amazon. Amazon sells a bunch of them. And they can also go to my website, and there's a link to Amazon. And so they can go there, too. My website is Great News for America. The book is More Great News for America. And if you haven't read Great News for America, which sets the foundation for a lot of the different trends in that, you might want to read that. And it still sells because it says a lot about where we're heading in the nation. And by the way, our outlook is fantastic. There are 8 new predictions in the book. The previous book had 10 predictions, 9 came true. This book has 8 new predictions. Some of them are big and bold, but I think they're going to come true.
Dr. Lamero, we got to have you back. We appreciate you, sir.
Oh, I appreciate you. You have a fantastic show. You do a great job. And as always, I'm just in awe of people who win the Marconi Award as you did.
Well, thank you, sir. It was almost 4 years ago. We appreciate it. And
I didn't forget.
I think I think it's you and my mom, but I sure do appreciate you mentioning that.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Lamero. Take care.
Have a great day.
All right, Dr. Lamero, more great news for America. Let's go to Jason in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jason.
Hey, good morning. I was just calling in. It sounded, and I was in traffic, so maybe I got this wrong, but it sounded like somebody said that Tommy Ahlquist was didn't have a conservative solution or approach to the Medicare expansion.
I think that was Representative Kingsley that called in and wondered how he would do it, and then he called it a scheme, and then he left. So.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I've been to a couple of Tommy's meetings, and first of all, I think the guy listens like crazy. But secondly, I know that he's commented, at least in the ones that I've been to, that he thinks that the Medicare expansion is a bad idea because there's some workings inside Medicare that can be done already, including some accountability on the people that are enrolled and things like that, and kind of an approach to me that's really conservative, which is keeping the safety net available, but then making some accountability from the inside. And he's got a heck of a lot more experience in the medical thing than I do, but I think that he's got some solutions from a business end that make me kind of perk up and listen, because it seems like he believes in my conservative bent that there is waste in government, and that we can go ahead and address the waste instead of adding to it, I guess, through expansion. So those are my 2 cents. I don't know if that clears up anything, but I know that I've heard him say on several occasions that he's against the expansion and has ideas on working from the inside.
Well, and he was pretty candid when he talked about the current administration and their lack of transparency. And, I think that's refreshing. And unlike Governor Otter, look, we value our own constituents. Dr. Ahlquist values this program. So that's all I have to say on that.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you. And as the political campaign heats up, we'll be taking more of your phone calls. And look, all the candidates are welcome on this program. We appreciate that. We want an open and fair process. But, again, Governor Otter, when he needed us, he was there. And when he didn't, we were gone. Those are just the facts. But, you look at Governor Otter, and he's a very successful politician, very successful businessman. We're not for everyone. And Bill O'Reilly taught me that lesson a long time ago. Look, it's their choices, and we move on. But it will be fascinating, this race, who, in fact, will be the next governor. And you can find out, as the message goes each and every morning. And, we go back to it. We had people calling in about Dr. Ahlquist. One thing that I can say about Dr. Ahlquist, Tommy Ahlquist, is, people say, well, why don't you call him Tommy or whatever? The way my dad brought me up is you respect people's titles and positions. Congressman Labrador, Lieutenant Governor Little, that sort of thing. They've earned that. And, that's how I was brought up. But I go back to, I've heard people. He listens. He'll meet with anyone. And I'm sure the other candidates will as well. But, the funny thing about this program is, it's what we built it for almost 9 years ago, to give people a voice. And he heard people talking about him. He came on. Then you have Representative Kingsley come on and say a few things. I don't think that comment was fair when he called it a scheme, though. I think, with all due respect to the representative, his bias was showing there on that. And I don't know if he's representing anybody or not. We appreciate him listening to the program and calling in. But we'll see. We'll see how Medicaid expansion goes. We'll see whether or not the repeal of the grocery tax happens. We'll see if the CBDO thing happens. There's a lot of promises, right? And whether you like it or not, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, there's going to be an incredible turnover after the May 15th primary, not only in the state offices, the state executive offices, but also within the legislature. We'll talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Seasoned Citizen with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Kevin.
How you been?
And, well, as I mentioned to Ray, you should archive the entire tape of this program because it's, without a doubt, one of the best
Well, thank you.
that you've
Thank
done. The aspect of the credibility and of Dr. Ahlquist, we can address that when he admits, is forthright, admits that he is a product akin to Trump. He took advantage of urban renewal, and he's honest about it. That's the first I'd ever heard him admit that. His credibility goes up, I have to admit. The other aspect is Dwight. God, it was good to hear his voice after 20-odd years. He's still active, and that the aspect of the differentiation between County of Ada and Ada County as far as the courthouse, that's beyond or above, one would say, the average, the pay. People don't know the differentiation between the two. Sky King made excellent observations within St. Luke's. Having been born there some length of time ago, this was an excellent program, and that's what I was mentioning to Ray. Archive the entire tape because you can make reference back to it in the future when you and I meet, and we will. By the way, debt is liability on a claim, and that's been going on since 1890. But enough. I've already talked too much. You have a nice day.
All right, Seasoned Citizen, thank you. Traffic and weather together. Our time. Gabbard. And now, the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Robert. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today?
I am living the dream.
You seem to be rolling right along here. Great show as usual. Representative King is right about politicians saying they will change things when elected, but actually realize they can't change those things when they are elected. And if Tom could have changed something, why didn't he do it when he was a doctor at St. Luke's for 10 years? I didn't see anything happen. It's just been the same old, same old. There is no conservative approach to Medicaid, as it should never have been implemented during the Johnson administration's Great Society programs. We've spent $21 billion since the 1960s and accomplished absolutely nothing but raising the national debt. As of last year, we had 58 million people on Medicaid, which will tell you the system's not working. So this Medicaid expansion they're talking about here in the state is nothing more than a way to pay insurance companies more money for less coverage, hurt 3,500 of the most needy patients by taking away from them the primary doctors and medical support groups. But I wanted to touch base on the subject that you were harping on pretty heavily, and that's unpaid debt. And the fact that we
your phone is like not good today.
It's not good.
It ain't
Should I call
looking. You might want to. Why don't you call us back on another line? It's because nobody can hear what you're saying.
Let me do that. I'll call you right back.
Thank you. All right. Tea Party Bob is going to give us review and commentary on the program, and you can as well. We love to hear from you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about the state of California. People are leaving. And if you aren't familiar with some of the topics we talked about, there's a report in the Statesman quoting a report from the ACLU that debt collectors can haul you off to prison. I thought we got rid of that with the Constitution. You'll hear the details next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good.
And we continue on. We go back to Tea Party Bob, hopefully on a better phone. Good morning.
Does this sound better, Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Well, I'm so happy because I certainly wanted to make you happy this morning.
Well, it's not for me. It's,
Now I understand. I'm only kidding.
Wow. A smack from Tea Party Bob.
I wanted to talk about your primary subject this morning. It seems like the new American motto is, I'm in debt, I'm a true American. And that the thought of putting somebody in prison for unpaid debt is totally preposterous when you consider the huge amount of debts owed by the general public. I mean, take, for instance, $1 trillion in student loans being carried by so many of our citizens. You would think that if we had some common sense, the law would allow this not to happen. But, we have legislators who don't seem to care about the poor citizens, who don't seem to care about them because they don't make campaign contributions. We'd be jailing the legislators who create the onerous laws if we were smart. They are ones who put the grocery tax into effect, which in many ways is responsible for people going into debt. We allow the repossession of the elderly homes because they can't pay taxes by our elected officials that continue to raise the taxes to the point that they can't afford the debt because they live on Social Security. As a society, we place these burdens on those who can't afford to pay and even allow higher fees to be placed on those who have lower incomes. If you look at how they charge credit card fees. When people lose their homes, we place an even larger burden on society as people become homeless and wind up in a welfare system. We're our own worst enemy. The responsibility for debt and its repayment needs to be placed on the banks and the other merchants who hand out credit lines to people who don't have the ability to repay. They also have the ability to write off that debt. Now, our legislators' laws, rules, and regulations inhibit people from working, like the case of the cosmetologists that have to purchase a license in order to put makeup on somebody, or say the silly bill that they wanted to license kitchens that make cakes for bake sales at churches. Now, why do we place the unnecessary burden on them? We should be making it easier for people to find employment, not harder.
I want the state regulating people baking cakes.
Yes, I do too. I want them eating those cakes. Oh, excuse me, they have been doing that.
Well, here's the other one, though. But look at the situation in Preston, Idaho. Okay? The teacher who allegedly did this, and let's face it, they would have denied it. They killed the turtle, but the teacher is not charged. He's still going to school, and they wonder why all heck's breaking loose. And then you take a look at the state of Idaho, and look, I understand that people that are representatives and senators, exactly. Sometimes they get a little sensitive, but the fact that there was no effort to repeal the grocery tax because Governor Otter said no shows you that there needs to be some reform. That the CBD oil thing, where they were caught on tape saying the governor was against it. I don't know about you, but we go back to our classes that you have a legislative branch that is supposed to be solely executive branch, and unfortunately, that is not happening in this state.
Well, I think the good thing that's happening is we have one of the largest contingents of primaries that we have had, I would think, in the history of Idaho, and that if we only get 2/3 of these people elected, we are going to change that legislature. We are going to get rid of the cronies like Hyder and Sidaway and all of these people who seem to block the important bills that need to be changed. When we elect, let's put it this way, we go to the polls and we vote for the people we like, but we don't usually dig in and find out why we like them. it's almost as bad as going to St. Luke's because you have to go there, and then they charge you a high rate for a bill, and you can't afford it. But that's the only place you can go because it's there. It's the same thing with the legislature.
Well, but on the other hand, and we've seen this with our friend Darrell and Alan and others who've run for office, that all of a sudden their opponents that are entrenched incumbents come out with multicolored mailers, and that's what the average citizen sees. They don't see the guy knocking on the door. They get flooded with stuff and social media, and you're thinking this is just a state rep race.
Well, therein lies the problem, and therein lies my old quote: we get the government we deserve. If we don't dig in and find out who these people are and what they are, we're never going to get good government.
Well, but then on the other hand, Rusty Smurs the other day, he's at a meeting and some woman from California goes, "I don't have time for this. I want to hang with my grandkids." And you're like, one thing about the libs is they have a lot of time for this.
Yeah, and that's why they keep winning, and that's why we have the cronies in office that we have, because people need to spend more time doing other things than worrying about if they want to spend more time with their kids. They had better fix the system because they're going to spend less and less time with their kids,
right,
and more time paying for taxes.
And on that optimistic note, we bid you adieu.
You have a great day, Kevin.
All right.
Great show. Have a good day.
All right. Our great friend, Tea Party Bob. How do we top that with the perennial candidate for governor, pro-life? Good morning.
Yeah, but I'm not running for governor.
What are you running for there, buddy?
I'm running for U.S. representative in the 1st District.
You're running for Congress?
Yeah, Walt Bays took my place for governor.
Walt's out of the hospital?
Yeah, he's out of the hospital. He's home, and I haven't talked to him for a few days, but I think he's doing all right. And if he can talk, he'll be a very dangerous animal. But
people say that about you.
Right. But anyway, you take the governor's race. Those three guys are not that much difference between them. They're all trying to figure out what.
Oh, I don't
people
know.
want to hear.
I don't know about that. I think there's a big difference between them, and you know that. Come on, is that really fair?
It isn't fair. I mean, it is fair.
Well, wait a minute. Is or isn't fair? So
no, there's not that much difference.
Now here, correct me.
Yeah.
And gosh knows, you talk to my parents, they'll say, "Gosh, this guy needs correcting all the time," and they ain't talking about you, pro-life.
Right.
So you've got one person, businessman, one person that has been involved as a state rep through the grassroots, worked his way up as a congressman. Another person, another candidate, worked his way up, run for state office successfully many times, has worked hand in hand with the administration, well respected. All three come from different backgrounds, I believe, and I think all three will have a different way of handling government. It depends on which way you want to go.
Well, I'll tell you this, that if one of them would say, as a chief executive, I can stop all the baby murders in Idaho, and they can because no legislature or Congress has ever ruled when legal personhood begins. That could happen. And if one of them would say, listen, we're going to...
So in other words, you want them to outlaw abortion.
Right. And they could just go against the federal court ruling, the Supreme Court ruling on gay marriage.
Wouldn't that cost us a lot of money?
No, it wouldn't cost us anything.
Well, the federal government would come in and sue us. They'd bring in the troops.
No,
they'd stuff and cuff. The first person they'd get is you. They'd stuff and cuff you and haul you away.
No, they wouldn't. Now, let's see. There's transgender surgeries being committed here in Idaho.
I see you're not going to address my objections. You're just going to continue to roll on here. Is that how that works?
No, the objection is that you don't go to federal court if the court doesn't have jurisdiction. If the federal courts can't make those decisions, and they shouldn't be making those decisions, all criminal law should be in the jurisdiction of states, and it isn't. The federal government's usurped that. So one state, at least, maybe Idaho, could say, listen, we're not listening to the federal government on all these issues.
Well, you remember that. What's his name? The governor tried that with nullification. They got him.
Which governor?
Governor Otter.
I can't even remember when he tried to nullify.
You remember that. He was going to nullify the health care, and he brought that up, and then they slapped his wrist, and that was the end of that.
Well, yeah, because he's a wimpy guy. If he would have just said no, listen, and if the legislature would have backed him up, then we could have just said no, we're just not going to have Obamacare here. But he went out and we went for our own type of exchange, and that you don't want to do that kind of stuff.
Well, all I know is when you call the governor, you've got his cell phone. He answers.
Right.
You need to call him up and say,
Get on, Kevin.
Kevin Miller keeps whining. Why don't you come on the show? But, that's okay if he doesn't.
Well, it's just the politicians, and I have.
This is what I love about this program. It's as if I don't exist. They just do their talking points around what I say. Maybe I should continue to say something outrageous and goofy and see if you respond. Many people might find that more entertaining than our current conversation.
Say something real goofy, and then I will respond.
Pro-Life, thank you for the call. God bless. Let's go to Hugh and Emmett with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Kevin. I'm a tax refugee from California. I moved here 3 years ago.
Welcome to America.
I'm, as I said, I voted at the ballot box in California for 45 years, and the state turned to a hellhole anyway. So I voted with my feet finally. A couple of questions I have about the candidates. I don't understand why groceries are taxed here, and I haven't heard anybody say anything about the state-run liquor stores. I think that's the very antithesis of a capitalist, conservative society. What have you heard about the liquor stores especially?
I think there was a story that they were going to expand the state liquor stores. They haven't done that in a while, but you would like to see the liquor sales privatized?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a lucrative deal if they, some states do that, and then they're the only ones sanctioned, so it's almost like a built-in monopoly. And liquor sales, you print money on that.
It is, but they limit the selection that you have there. In Emmett, I think we have one liquor store, and the selection's okay. It's not great. I also have a comment about the hemp oil.
Sure.
My son-in-law is a deputy sheriff in Sonoma County, and he's in the very center of the Emerald Triangle there. And to me, hemp oil seems like the foot in the door. I can't believe that there isn't the same molecule can't be synthesized without extracting it from hemp. That'll no sooner be approved than the money behind it will be wanting recreational marijuana or medicinal marijuana, and the crime problems associated with that are just staggering. My son-in-law is involved just about every week in Sonoma County or Mendocino County. There is a home invasion robbery where, the guy and his family and the children are asleep, and word gets around that he's got a grow operation in his backyard or in his garage, and armed thugs come in and, point guns at people, rob the guy because they can't deposit their money in a federally insured bank. Rumor always is that they've got piles of money in the house. It's just, you probably heard that there were 7 people from the East Coast that flew into the Bay Area and robbed 3 houses in Petaluma 2 weeks ago. And finally, amazingly, they caught all of them, but it's largely based on some old information they had that there was a big grow operation there. It's the kind of legal problem that Idaho just doesn't need.
Very valid points, Hugh. Thank you for the call.
You're welcome.
And let's go to Jim in Meridian with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Terrific program this morning, all of it. A lot of good information there. I wanted to ask you about the candidates for governor.
Sure.
If we go look up on Wikipedia, there's a bunch of them, and I've never heard of a bunch of them. Are you going to be able to have them all on, or have you asked them all to be on?
Well, we've had Steve Pankey on. We've met Lisa Marie, and usually how it works is they'll give us a call, and we'll put them on.
I see names, under Republicans. There's a Sidney Taylor I've never heard of. There's a Stephen Tengi, something like that. And then there's some independent candidates as well. Adam Phillips and Michael Richardson and John Thomas, looks like Wiecek.
No, I mean, we don't have a problem with anybody coming on.
Yeah, I'd really be interested in, what they have to say and kind of like what their platform is, because as some of your other callers have said, the popular three, or the top three that everybody calls them for the Republicans, they're all unacceptable to me.
Really? Why would you say that?
Well, none of those, at least two of them are part of the establishment, as others have pointed out.
Okay.
I mean, they're deeply, deeply part of the establishment, like Lieutenant Governor Brad Little, for example. So they're completely unacceptable on that level. And then I've asked Dr. Ahlquist, Tommy Ahlquist, to make a public statement on opposing the refugee resettlement racket in Idaho, which is a big money racket. It's all it is. It's corrupt. And he won't do it. None of those three will do it.
Really? None of them will talk about the refugees?
That's right. So, why would they keep their position secret? Certainly they're grown men. They have a position on it. They've thought about it.
Well, that says it all right there, doesn't it?
Well, the person's going to represent me. I want to know his position on it, because it needs to be stopped. It's corrupt. It's a waste of money. It's causing problems. We had the sexual assault in East Idaho and other problems. The one arrested for plotting terrorism here was a refugee.
Which doesn't get reported much. Now, what does get reported is, look at all these heartbreaking families and stuff. But you're right. I mean, we had a bomber here in Boise.
That's right. Idaho and Boise dodged a bullet because Kurbanoff was his name. If anybody wants to look it up, Kurbanoff. Already had bomb-making materials at his apartment here in Boise. He was planning to blow up Gowan Field and kill Idahoans and our military families. And so, this is a very important issue. It's in the top list of issues for me personally, and who I'm going to choose to vote for.
Exactly. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thanks.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. We continue on next on KIDO Talk Radio.
3 people are hurt after a shooting this morning at Great Mills High School in southeast Maryland. The St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office confirms they were sent to the hospital, but the extent of their injuries is not known. Siobhan, a student, says there was chaos when she arrived at the school this morning.
Students running out, screaming and yelling frantically, so I immediately got back into my car.
The FBI, ATF, and local authorities responding to the scene. The school is telling parents to report to nearby Leonardtown High School. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan tweeted his office is monitoring the situation. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
More on this in a minute. First, traffic and weather together with Everett. All right, Larry, thank you very much. Kevin Miller in the morning. We continue on taking your phone calls. So, unfortunately, another school shooting. There we have the natural sound of it. Right, by the way, if you're just tuning in, this is in Maryland, not in Idaho. It goes to show you that the debate will continue on how to keep kids safe, both here in the Gem State and throughout the country. We can expect much, much more on this. Also, throughout the day, we'll be monitoring the situation on the explosions or multiple explosive devices over the last few days in Austin, Texas, most notably at the Texas FedEx facility. Really, it comes down to the type of world that we're going to live in. And unfortunately, what we're going to see, and this does not take a brain surgeon to predict, we're going to have politicians continuing to use these, especially the school shooting in Maryland, which we don't know a lot about, as another reason to come after the Second Amendment. When will we ever begin to understand, and not you, not me, but the libs, that our society needs good, strong people, men and women, to protect us? And sometimes, as much as the authorities would love to get there, would love to be there at the quickness, they can't make it. They cannot make it. So you need to protect yourself in the middle of the night. And the idea of trust. People say, well, we should trust our institutions. Well, one of the founding fathers that created our great government, Thomas Jefferson, didn't trust the institutions. The founding fathers created this great nation because the institutions had too much power over the individuals. You know, we talk about the United States of America not being a very old country, but our Constitution, thanks by the grace of God and through divine direction, man, is the oldest living, breathing document in the world today that governs us. So the idea of social media, hyperbole, fake news can undermine our very foundations. Those battles fought between Madison and Jefferson and Hamilton and Washington and Adams, they live on today. For if we're not engaged, and we appreciate it, it's called self-preservation, each and every morning, when then those rights, those liberties that we have so earned and have so endeared ourselves to our soul will be lost. I know that's a little heady for Tuesday morning, but we wish you a great day. Rehemiah, thank you very much. May God bless you and your family. Keep the faith.